as well as EPA Agency Coordinator Greg Harper. We also have the Fire Chief, Marion McDaniel, on scene, and we'll take brief questions immediately after.
Good afternoon. I'm Sharon Webb, Director of EMA for Rockdale County. On September 29th, an incident occurred at BioLab. For the past week, teams have come together to mitigate the problem and find the situation under control. This week, a shelter-in-place was put in place for Rockdale County from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., and that was due to the fact of weather conditions. At nighttime, when the temperatures drop and dew sets in, it creates a plume at a lower area across ground level, and it was more safety for the citizens to be in place at that time. As the week has continued, EPA has continued to monitor air quality and has come to the decision that after the readings that they have had in place, that we are able to release the shelter in place for all of Rockdale County, with the exception of a 2-mile radius in reference to the incident. I'm now going to call up Greg Harper with EPA to give a little bit more explanation of that decision.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Harper. I work for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. I'm an on-scene coordinator. So my role in this response has been managing our community monitoring data. First and foremost, I'd like to say that we, the EPA, we're very concerned about the community and their health, especially those who are at high risk. We have been in the community since the beginning of the response conducting air monitoring. So we support this reduction in shelter in place based on our last 72 hours of air monitoring data that we've collected around the site and throughout the community. So,
questions?
Yes, so you said basically in a 2-mile radius, anyone that's within 2 miles, the shelter in place is still in standing, is that correct?
Yes, that will be what we push out tonight, that anyone in reference to a 2-mile radius of the incident will have a shelter in place from the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Now, is that just in the evenings or during the day, or is it for businesses or everybody?
That will be in the evenings. Just for the 2-mile radius will be from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. The rest of the county will be lifted from the shelter in place.
Why was there an evacuation order today near VFW Drive over that area?
About the evacuation.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Why was there an evacuation alert that went out for the VFW area?
Thank you. So my name is Rick Jardine. I'm also an on-scene coordinator for the United States Environmental Protection Agency. I'm working in Unified Command with Chief McDaniel's folks. So what happened was we had a number of people who are getting very optimistic due to the great results we're having with the cleanup effort. And they came back and started their businesses in almost the entire county. That's a great idea. Right around the site, very close proximity in the VFW area, particularly the frontage road there, which is adjacent to the facility. It's not a good idea right now. It's deceiving because there are times where it's just as clear as anywhere else in America. But then at other times, we're working with very hazardous chemicals, and we're trying to do the right job to get them away, to stabilize everything. But in doing that activity, some things become unstable. Again, it's an uncontrolled chemicals. They're not in containers. They're not in a building. We can't shut the doors. So sometimes during our operations with the heavy equipment, in the pumping and the stabilization process, we have, you could call it an upset or just a natural reaction. And so when those things happen, we can't have folks right in that area. So very close proximity to the site, the places that were by the way, the county's doing an excellent job of these evacuations and these notices because they've got the latest technology that can key in on a certain spot. So everyone in the county didn't get that message. It was really keyed into the very, very, very local group.
Okay. The car dealerships, are you talking specifically about the car dealerships and the other businesses?
I believe there is a car dealership in that area. I'm not certain about the different businesses. I know there are a lot of businesses there. I helped to advise some of the people so they would leave promptly, and the folks are really cooperating.
So to wrap this up, so you're making a lot of progress, but this thing still isn't over.
That is correct.
What testing have you all done?
My business is right there. I was told I could enter this morning, and then all of a sudden the guy in a gas mask comes in and said, "You got to leave immediately." And I say, who are you? And he says, "Well, how come you're here?" I said, "I was told I could come in." He says, you got to leave. I said, who are you? He says, I represent the company.
And-
I said, what company? He said, BioLab. So my thing is this. If I'm not allowed to be there, I'm perfectly fine. But I want to be given direction, clear direction. How long do you think these businesses can be away? There are businesses in that cul-de-sac, in that area. They need to have this information. They need to know how long they're going to be shut down and not be able to access their businesses. That's a priority to know. You just can't keep saying minute by minute, day by day, and it's been 7 days now. That's irresponsible, and it's reckless to not let these businesses know what's going on.
In addition, what resources are being provided for the businesses who are forced to shut down and the families who are being displaced? Because as a Rockdale resident, I haven't received anything from anybody. As a Rockdale business owner, we haven't been approached by anybody. So that's what I'm here for.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chairman Nesbitt. I'm the chairman of the county. Let me first say that economic development for Rockdale County is just as important as public safety. And we want all of our businesses, whether they're small business, entrepreneur, business, medium, large-sized business, we want all of our businesses to open up. We need our businesses to get back to normal operations. However, nothing supersedes public safety. Now, we have a new map, and a map that will outline the immediate area in the close proximity and vicinity of BioLab. And in that area, as you heard from our EMA director, from 7 p.m. until 7 a.m., we'll be under a shelter in place in that immediate area. If you're being asked to shelter in place, not operate, not open your business, not to go in the close proximity of BioLab, that is for your own public health and your public safety. Let me repeat. We need and we want all of our businesses to be back in operation from an economic development standpoint. But there's nothing more important than public safety. In reference to time and how much more time, all of us in Rockdale County and the city of Conyers, we want this completely resolved and completely behind us. We have crews on the ground at ground zero working tirelessly 24/7 to get this under control. We cannot give you false hope or box us into a certain amount of time. I would love to say that this will be over tomorrow, the next day, but we're not at that point. The most important thing that's happening here in Rockdale County right now is to continue to mitigate this situation so that we can bring public health and public safety back to its normal operation. That's what we're trying to do. We still have a crisis. So we're still in the middle of crisis management. And we have crews on the ground at the scene trying to get this situation completely under control. I am standing by for a call from the fire chief to tell me that this situation has been completely resolved. I am eagerly waiting that call. Residents are waiting that call. Business owners are waiting that call. How long we're going to have to wait for that call, we don't know yet. We don't know yet. So we're not going to give you false hope. We're not going to say something that is untrue. What we're trying to do is keep our community safe. And we ask that you be patient with us as we work through this process. Once again, I'm going to step away and let you hear from some more content experts, but I do want to paint this picture very carefully. Initially, we had a fire. The roof collapsed. The walls collapsed. The roof collapsed on chemicals, on product. The walls collapsed on chemicals, on products. Before we can properly remove the chemical in the product, we've got to remove the debris. What debris? The roof, the walls. Once we get into removing that debris, then we can start safely and properly removing the chemicals. That process has already started. It's very tedious, and it has to be done properly and correctly. In the meantime, we still are obligated to keep the citizens, which includes residents and businesses, safe in Rockdale County. I'm asking that you be patient. This is frustrating, it's irritating, but we've got to go through this process and we've got to do it right. And I think if we give the amount of time that we need, then we can get to the outcome that we're looking for.
Yes, sir.
Given the time that many people have been unemployed or taking little time, has the city looked into, or the county looked into how much this is going to cost economically as far as loss of wages and etc.?
So the county doesn't have a number at this time in terms of what this overall costs, whether it's costing people to close up their businesses. We don't have that number at this time. I think it's too premature to come up with that number because this situation is still ongoing. I will tell you that the folks at BioLab is creating a community liaison that will be able to respond to those inquiries and questions about businesses being closed, people sheltering in place. They're putting together their own separate independent response that has nothing to do with Rockdale County at all. But the county does not have any numbers at this point. Once again, the county, Rockdale County, our primary focus is on public health, public safety. Once we get this situation completely resolved, we will begin to entertain other thoughts and where do we go from there. But right now, we're still in crisis management. The number one goal is to get this completely resolved before we move to the next phase.
Yes, ma'am.
For the businesses that are currently right in the proximity of BioLab, currently are they supposed to be shut until further notice, or because I understand the shelter in place is from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., but it sounds like some of them should not be currently operating either.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. Businesses that are located on Black Lawn, as well as Olympic Court and VFW at Dogwood West, going to past BioLab, all those are closed indefinitely until we can resolve the situation. I do not.
So can you speak to the dangers in that 2-mile zone? Say I venture out at 7:01 p.m. or 6:59 a.m. What are the risks to me as a person?
That's a very good question, and let me tell you, I would suggest that people use a common sense response to that. You just said at 6:59 and that the shelter in place goes in from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. If you're leaving your door at 6:59, that's 1 minute until it changes to 7 p.m. The common sense in that is that you stay in. Because
what are the risks, though? I need to hear the exact risks.
Well, the risk is the fact that we put in a shelter in place from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Again, using your example from 6:59, then you should stay in. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Some residents have reported finding debris in their yard. Is that something they should be concerned about? What should they do with that?
BioLab has put together a debris response team. They should contact BioLab, and BioLab, in fact, BioLab has already dispatched and deployed some of those responders out to safely pick up and remove some of the debris. I've had certain numbers of our residents to text me directly, and I sent them straight to BioLab. Those residents text me back and said, "Thank you, Mr. Chairman." BioLab immediately sent over a representative and they removed the debris. So that is being handled through BioLab, and they've been responsive in that regard.
So are you unsure of the risks within that 2-mile radius?
I'm sorry, ma'am. Please repeat your question.
What kind of testing are you all doing right now, and what exactly are you testing for with air quality and the
Thank you. EPA, can you speak to that?
Okay, so specifically in the air, we're monitoring for chlorine and hydrochloric acid.
And are you guys looking into the debris at all?
So the debris is an issue that BioLab is addressing, and you'll have to ask them.
So the EPA isn't testing any of the debris, or?
I'll turn that over to operations.
Ingesting that particular chemical, and what should residents do in order to seek medical attention if they experience some of those side effects?
Can you go with the first question about the debris?
That's what I'd like to answer first. So when we're discussing the debris on site is one issue entirely. It's all going to be addressed. The debris that's gone off site is another issue. The debris that's gone off site are burnt remnants of the roofing installation. This is styrofoam. It's blown in a track along where the plume was going back on day one, back Sunday, 2 Sundays ago. We are looking at that data. And the data that we're looking for asbestos, because asbestos is often in roofing material. That would be the most hazardous thing we can think of. There's no chlorine on it. So the sampling has shown that it's asbestos-free. There's no asbestos. They've also checked for metals and what we call semi-volatile organic compounds, all below concern levels, totally below concern levels. If it was my yard and it was in my way, I'd either blow it off with a leaf blower or I'd put on gloves. You know, just like during COVID, everyone had gloves. I'd put on gloves, put it in a trash bag, tie it up, put it out with the trash. It's innate, inorganic. I mean, it's not, I shouldn't say inorganic. It's not contaminated debris. It's not dangerous in any way. However, BioLab has offered to go get that material. If they haven't published a website yet, they will very soon. They've already begun to do it, like Commissioner Nesbitt already described. They've done all the right-of-ways around there, but they can't go on private property without permission. Okay, so they're waiting to set that system up. They're going to have an email. I believe they've already established that. I don't have that information to give you right now. We can provide that later. But they are willing to and happy. I shouldn't say happy. They're willing, absolutely willing to go and get that from the individual properties. They need permission. Thank you.
BioLab here right now.
I can't answer that.
So I want to respond to the question about the health concerns. I think the gentleman had a very valid question. So all of the precautions that we're taking in Rockdale County, as you heard me say earlier, right next to public safety is economic development. But the shelter in place from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. is so that we can continue to take care of the people in Rockdale County. If someone is experiencing a respiratory condition, if there's an emergency with a respiratory condition, if they're asthmatic, COPD, any type of lung or respiratory problems, just in any normal situation, if they feel the need to dial 911 and get an ambulance, that's exactly what they should do. If they're in a condition where they think they can take themselves to the local emergency room, that's exactly what they should do. If they live in that immediate area, they should follow the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shelter in place. That's a part of our goal, to keep the immediate area as safe and healthy as possible. So that's an encouragement, that if you know of people with respiratory issues, again, we strongly encourage that you shelter in place between 7 p.m. and 8 a.m. and 7 a.m. If you have a respiratory situation going on personally, then you really don't need to be nowhere near this activity. All of what we continue to say is to keep the county safe. All of what we're doing is continue to work through this process at ground zero to make sure that we can mitigate this process and get to a point of resolution where we can get reports back from the fire department, EMA, and EPD and EPA and all of our partners that this problem is resolved. We do not have a time frame. We want this gone. We want this over as soon as we can. However, it is a process. So night and day, all night and day, our teams are working. We want to get Rockdale County back to normal operation, but we got to stay safe. And we're asking folks to please be patient with us, and we will have more information about BioLab and the community liaison that they're putting out, the brick and mortar place where folks can actually go to them. We don't have that information yet. We know that they're working on that as we speak. As soon as we get it, as soon as we receive it, we're going to advertise it. We're going to send it out to all of our media outlets so that you can put it out on our behalf and share with the community where they can go, what number they can call, what resources they can get from BioLab.
With the reduction in the shelter-in-place region, is your hope that in-person learning will start on Thursday as planned?
Let me tell you about how this has impacted our local schools. Yes, we're on virtual learning all the way to Wednesday. Our young people should be back in a robust environment, in an educational environment where they can participate in school activities in a normal setting. Unfortunately, that's not the case because of public safety. It is our greatest desire that our young people, and we'll be able to open the schools back up in the coming weeks, in the coming days, as soon as it is safe. As soon as it's safe to bring our young people back into an educational environment with their activities like they would normally do. But to keep our young people safe, faculty, staff, parents, school bus drivers, and everybody associated with public education, schools have made the decision to go to virtual learning until Wednesday. If that changes, that will be made by the Board of Education of Rockdale County.
So why is it too dangerous for the kids?
Last question.
You are there listening to Oz Nesbitt, who is the Rockdale County chairman, in a news conference there from officials giving us the latest on the BioLab situation. In particular, the cleanup. The headline out of there was that the shelter in place that had been in place for days now has now been lifted, except for those who live and work within a 2-mile radius of the facility. Obviously, you could hear a lot of questions, a lot of frustration, in particular from business owners, wondering when this will all be over with. We did hear from officials that they are continuing to remove debris, remove the walls, and hopefully soon remove the chemicals. A lot of questions that we still haven't gotten answers for, but we are going to continue to stay at that news conference, and you can watch the entire news conference on 11 Alive Plus. And of course, we'll have much more on the cleanup efforts and more coming up tonight in just about 1 hour on our news at 4 o'clock. But right now, we'll get you back to your normal programming.
Keeping our young people safe is our top priority, just as it is with all of the county.
Mr. Chairman, this is our last question here.
Yes, ma'am.
Could we get an update from Chief McDaniels about the progress of the site and where we are since the last precedent?
Yes, ma'am. Chief.
So as we're in our 8th day, we're working a unified command, which consists of the fire department, EPA, EPD, and BioLab. We've had a plan in place last Wednesday that we redefined that allows us to offset a larger volume of the product. What that means is that there's a significant reduction in a water reactive chemical, which subsequently reduces the plume, particularly as it relates to the hydrochloric acid and the chlorine. So we will continue to work in that unified command until the successful completion of this incident. So that's where we are with that.
Is it possible to know what percentage of the material is now removed?
A large volume. There's not a percentage, but there's large. The process is that we've been offloading it using 200-gallon containers. We are doing that, offsetting it to a hazardous mitigation company for storage, and we're going to continue to do that process.
Is it possible to know the names of the contractors that are on site helping with this yet?
No.
You plan on closing BioLab for good. It's the 3rd incident. BioLab going to be closed?
Why is it okay for the business